I walked onto the rooftop with a glass of cold juice in my hand. I was smiling. It was our special night. Then I saw them. My best friend was standing very close to the man I loved. Her hands were on his jacket. His face was near her hair. The glass fell from my hand and broke on the floor. The worst part was this. I was the one who had introduced them. 6 months before that night, I held my best friend's hand across a dinner table and said, "This is Samith. He is the man I told you about." I wanted my two favorite people in the world to be friends. I never thought it would end like this. I never thought I would be standing in a doorway, watching my best friend and my boyfriend stand so close together, on the very night I had planned to tell him something important. I need to tell you the whole story from the beginning, because what I saw that night was not the full truth. There were secrets hiding under 6 months of love and friendship. Some of those secrets were mine too. Stay with me. It gets better. It gets worse first. Then it gets better. My name is Anna. I grew up in a small apartment with my mom. She cleaned office buildings early in the morning before the sun came up. My dad left when I was a baby. I never knew his face. I worked hard in school. I got a scholarship to college. By the time I was 26, I had a good job at a big company called Ellison Capital. I was smart at my job, but I was also good at hiding things. I hid the nights I skipped dinner to save money. I hid a secret I had carried since I was 19 years old. I had never told anyone that secret, not even my best friend, Jasmine. Samith was the boss of my boss's boss. He was 31 years old. His family owned a huge shipping company. People said he was worth more money than some small countries. But he was not like other rich men. He remembered the names of the cleaning staff. He brought coffee to the new interns every morning. The first time we talked, it was almost midnight. I was eating a sad salad alone in the break room. He walked in with his tie loose and asked if I was going to share my food or make him order his own. "Depends," I said. "Are you a good tipper or are rich men actually cheap?" He laughed. It was a real laugh, like I had surprised him. "That depends," he said, "on whether you're always this mean to the man who signs your paycheck." "I'm mean to everyone equally," I told him. "It's part of my charm. It's working," he said. And my stomach did a little flip that I did not plan for. That is how it started, not with fireworks. Just two tired people joking over bad coffee at midnight. Over the next few weeks, midnight coffee became a habit. Then it became something we both looked forward to. He would lean in my office doorway and say things like, "I had a whole speech about numbers ready, but you're wearing that blue jacket, and now I forgot every number I know." "Careful," I would say. "Flattery will not fix your spreadsheet mistakes." "It fixed something," he would say, standing close enough that I could smell his cologne, and I would pretend my heart was not beating fast. 6 weeks after we first talked, he showed up at my apartment door in the rain. He had no umbrella. He was holding a bag of warm food. I had only mentioned once, one single time, that I had a bad day. "You didn't have to do this," I said. He shrugged, soaked from head to toe in his expensive coat, and said, "I know. I wanted to." That was the night I let myself believe that a man like Samith could really love a girl like me. Not the polished version I showed at work, the real me. The one with a cracked laugh and a guarded heart and a past I had never shared with him. Our midnight coffee talks kept growing. One night he found me still at my desk at 11 o'clock, staring at a wall of numbers that would not add up right. "You look like a woman who needs a break," he said, leaning on the doorway with his sleeves rolled up. "I look like a woman who needs these numbers to be nicer to her," I said, rubbing my eyes. "Numbers are never nice," he said. "That's why I hired people like you to argue with them for me. So I'm basically your numbers translator." "You're my favorite numbers translator," he said, and pulled up a chair without even asking. We worked side by side for another hour, and somewhere in that hour, between spreadsheets and bad jokes, I realized I was smiling more than I had in months. Another night, he tried to teach me how to tie a fancy knot in his tie, just to make me laugh, and ended up with the tie completely backward, and me laughing so hard I could barely breathe. "This is a disaster," he said, looking in the mirror on my office wall. "This is the best thing I've seen all week," I told him. "You're supposed to be impressed by my wealth and power, not my terrible knot-tying skills. I am unbothered by wealth and power. I am, however, deeply entertained by terrible knot-tying skills." He grinned at that, The kind of grin that made my chest feel warm and a little bit dangerous, like standing too close to a fire that might burn you if you were not careful. I told myself I was being careful. I was not being careful at all. Here is my secret. When I was 19, scared and alone with no money, I had a baby girl. I could not take care of her the way she deserved. So I made the hardest choice of my life. I let a loving family adopt her. I told myself it was the bravest thing I had ever done. Some nights I still believe that. Other nights I wake up thinking of her name, the one I whispered to her just once before the nurse took her away. I built my whole life like a wall around that sadness. I did not let people get close enough to ask questions that might break the wall down. Samith was the first person in 8 years who made me want to open the gate. I introduced him to Jasmine on a sunny Tuesday. She was the only family I had left in this city. She was a hairstylist with the loudest, happiest laugh you have ever heard. She had been my best friend since we were 8 years old, sitting together in the same third-grade classroom. "He's perfect for you," she told me after meeting him, squeezing my arm so hard it left a mark. "Marry that man, Anna. I mean it." The weeks after that were some of the happiest of my whole life. Samith took me to see the ocean for the first time in years, and he stood next to me on the cold sand without saying a word, just letting me breathe in the salty air like it was medicine. Jasmine started calling him the billionaire with a heart, which made him laugh every single time. "Tell your friend I have a name," he told me once. "She knows your name," I said. "She just likes teasing you." "I like being teased," he admitted. "Reminds me of you." "Careful," I said. That almost sounded romantica. "I have my moments," he said, and kissed my forehead so gently that I forgot, just for a second, about the wall I had built around my heart all those years ago. "I need to tell you something now, so you are not worried the whole time you read this." What I saw on the rooftop was real, but it was also not what it looked like at all. The gap between those two things almost cost me everything I loved. 3 weeks before the rooftop night, Samith's mother invited me to her fancy apartment for tea I never asked for. Her name was Eleanor. She was the kind of woman who was cruel in a quiet, polished way, like a knife hidden inside a pretty gift box. She poured tea with steady hands and told me she had done a little research on my past. She knew about my mom's job. She knew my dad left. And somehow, with money and connections I did not even know existed, she had found out about the year I was 19. "I don't think you're a bad person, Anna," she said, and somehow that felt worse than if she had yelled at me. "But my son is going to run this whole company one day. Companies like ours cannot survive a scandal. If a reporter found out that my son's girlfriend gave up a baby and never told him, how do you think that headline would look? How do you think he would feel, learning it from a stranger instead of from you?" I left her apartment shaking so badly I could not find my own keys. She was right about one thing. I had not told Samith yet, and every day I waited felt like a lie I was choosing over and over again. That question sat heavy in my chest for the next 2 weeks. Had Samith and Jasmine really betrayed me? Or had I already betrayed Samith, simply by loving him with half of myself hidden away? 2 weeks before the rooftop, I finally got the courage to tell him everything. I invited him to dinner. I practiced the words in my mirror a dozen times. Then my courage disappeared the second he walked in, grinning, holding a small box he thought I had not noticed slide into his coat pocket. I knew that box. Every part of my body recognized that box. I could not ruin what might be the happiest night of both our lives with a truth I had been scared of for 8 years. So I said nothing. I smiled through the whole dinner. When his phone rang and he had to leave early for work, he said, "Rain check, Anna. I promise, something big is coming." I told myself I still had time. I did not know that Eleanor had already started her next move. Here is the moment that changes everything, so hold on tight. 2 days after that dinner, Jasmine called me, and her voice was shaking. "Anna, sit down, I need to tell you something. Eleanor Cole came to my salon today. She knows about the baby. She showed me real papers, Anna, real documents, and she said if I did not help her, she would tell a gossip website everything before Samith could even propose to you. She wants me to distract him tonight, at the rooftop party. She wants one photo of us standing close together. She wants to hand that photo to a reporter and make it look like your boyfriend is cheating on you with your best friend. Then, when Samith, finds out about the baby from a stranger, he will already feel too hurt and embarrassed to listen to you. She is trying to break you down before you even get the chance to tell your own story. I remember sliding down onto my kitchen floor, my phone pressed hard against my ear. "So what did you tell her?" "I told her I would think about it," Jasmine said, "because I needed time to figure out how to stop her without you finding out and panicking too soon. I am so sorry. I should have called you the second she walked into my salon. That is the truth neither of us had time to explain before I opened that rooftop door." I walked straight into the exact photograph Eleanor had paid for. My best friend, close to my boyfriend, set up half a second before I arrived, timed perfectly to the minute Eleanor had learned I would be there. What I did not know yet, standing frozen in that doorway with a broken glass at my feet, was that Jasmine had gone along with the plan on purpose. She wanted to buy time. She wanted to warn Samith quietly the second she got the chance. She wanted to protect me from a blow she thought would land harder coming from a stranger than from the people who loved me. She thought she could control the moment. She was wrong. Samith turned first. I will never forget his face. It was not guilt. It was pure confusion, like a man waking from a dream to find the furniture moved around. "Anna," he started, stepping toward me. Jasmine was already talking over him, already crying, already saying my name like an apology. None of it reached me. All I could hear was a rushing sound in my ears, like 18 years of trust crashing down in one frozen second. I ran. Of course I ran. I ran down 4 flights of stairs because I could not stand still long enough to wait for an elevator. I ran out into a street shining with rain, and I did not stop until my legs could not carry me any further. My phone buzzed 11 times. I threw it into my bag without answering. I spent that whole night in an old diner booth, the same one I used to sit in as a poor college student, drinking black coffee and staring at my own reflection in the dark window. I felt 19 years old again, abandoned, ashamed, completely alone. I sat in that diner booth for hours, watching the rain slide down the window, thinking about every choice that had led me to that moment. I thought about the day I met Samith, laughing over bad break-room coffee. I thought about the day I introduced him to Jasmine, so proud and so happy, never once imagining it could lead to a broken glass on a rooftop floor. I thought about the 19-year-old girl I used to be, the one who thought if she just stayed quiet and strong enough, nobody would ever get close enough to hurt her again. I thought I had grown past that girl. Sitting in that booth, I realized she was still there, hiding just under the surface, scared as ever. The old waitress at the diner, a kind woman named Ruth, who had worked there for as long as I could remember, refilled my coffee without asking and set down a small plate of toast I had not ordered. "On the house, honey," she said. "Whatever it is, it'll look different in the morning." I did not believe her at the time. I believe her now. It would have been easy for the story to end right there. A heartbroken girl who trusted too much and paid the price. But that is not what happened. If you have come this far, you deserve to know the rest, because the rest is where everything I thought I understood about love and loyalty turned upside down. At 6 in the morning, someone knocked on my apartment door. It was not Samith. It was Jasmine, her makeup smeared down both cheeks, holding out her phone with shaking hands. "Before you shut this door in my face," she said, "I need you to listen to something." On her phone was a recording. She had started recording the second Eleanor showed up at her salon, some instinct telling her to protect us both. I heard Eleanor's cold, careful voice, explaining her whole plan. I heard her threaten to make my worst secret public if Jasmine did not cooperate. And right at the end, I heard Jasmine's voice, shaking but strong. "I will pose for your photo," she said, "but the second Anna walks in, I am telling her everything, and I am telling Samith everything too. You can try to ruin my friendship with her if that is really what you want on your conscience, but you will not ruin her life while I stand there and let it happen." I sat down hard on my own doorstep, the recording still playing, and for the first time since the rooftop I cried. Not from sadness this time, from relief so strong it actually hurt. "She got to me before I could warn Samith," Jasmine said. "I only had 2 minutes before you walked in. I panicked. I should have told you the truth the moment she threatened us instead of trying to handle it alone. I am so sorry, Anna. I would never do that to you. Not in a million years. I believed her. Not just because of the recording, though that helped. I believed her because 18 years of watching this woman show up for me, through my mom's sickness, through every heartbreak before Samith, through the loneliest year of my whole life, had built something that Eleanor's money could bend, but never truly break. That was the moment I understood the real problem underneath everything that had happened. It was never really about whether Jasmine had betrayed me. It was about whether I trusted the people who loved me enough to let them see me at my most broken. It was about whether I trusted myself enough to stop hiding a truth that had shaped my entire adult life. Eleanor had not invented my secret. She had only found the crack I was too scared to fix myself. I spent that whole day deciding what kind of person I wanted to be. Not the scared 19-year-old who disappeared into her own shame. Not a woman who let a stranger's cruelty decide when and how she told her own story. I called Samith. He was outside my building in 20 minutes. His tie was gone. His eyes were red like he had not slept at all either. "I don't fully understand what happened last night," he said before I could speak, "but I know it was not what it looked like. And I know I should have run down those stairs after you, instead of just standing there like a fool. Whatever you are about to tell me, I am not going anywhere. Please, just talk to me." We sat down on the steps of my building, the same steps where he had once shown up soaked in the rain with warm food and no umbrella. Before I spoke, I looked at my hands for a long moment, trying to find the courage that had failed me so many times before. Samith did not rush me. He just sat there, close enough that I could feel the warmth of him, waiting like he had all the time in the world, even though I knew his whole life was usually run by the clock. "Take your time," he said quietly. "I'm not going anywhere." Those 5 words gave me more courage than anything anyone had ever said to me. I took a deep breath, and I told him everything. About the baby girl I gave up at 19. The name I only whispered once. The wall I had built brick by brick so no one could ever see me that helpless again. I told him about Eleanor's threats, about the fear that kept me silent even after I knew that silence was its own kind of lie. He did not flinch. He did not pull away the way I had feared any man would for 8 straight years. He took both my hands in his, and I noticed his hands were shaking too. "Anna," he said, "that is not a scandal. That is the single bravest thing I have ever heard in my whole life. You were a teenager with nothing, and you made an impossible choice out of love. And you have carried that alone for 8 years because you were scared people like my mother would use it as a weapon against you. I am so sorry it took a stranger's cruelty to make you feel safe enough to tell me. I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you never feel that alone again." Then, because he was still the same man who used jokes as both charm and armor, he wiped his eyes and almost laughed. "Also, for the record, I already bought a ring 3 weeks ago, and I have been carrying it around like an idiot waiting for the right moment. So if you were worried I would run away, I actually had the exact opposite plan." "You're an idiot," I told him, laughing and crying at the same time. "You could have just led with the ring, and ruined the moment where you tell me I'm brave for surviving my own mother's cruelty. Never. I have a reputation as a romantic to protect. You have a reputation as a man who forgets his umbrella in a hurricane. That's what makes me charming," he said, and he kissed me right there on my apartment steps, like the whole rain-soaked city around us did not even exist. But the story does not end with an easy proposal on some steps. Eleanor was not finished yet. Here comes the second big turn, so hold on. 2 weeks later, at the company's biggest party of the year, the kind where every important investor and 3 newspaper reporters would be in one room, Eleanor made her last move. She had already leaked a twisted version of the Rooftop photo to a gossip writer. The story was set to go live at 9 o'clock that night, timed perfectly to explode in the middle of the party. She wanted the whole board of the company to believe her son's judgment could not be trusted with the company's future. I found out with only 40 minutes to spare. A nervous young worker pulled me aside near the coat check, her phone shaking in her hand, and whispered that she had seen the draft of the story. 40 minutes to decide. Should I let a lie about me explode in a room full of powerful people? Or should I walk onto that stage myself and take back a story that had never truly belonged to Eleanor in the first place? I chose the stage. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my own purse. I thought about my mom, cleaning office buildings at 4 in the morning so I could have a better life than she did. I thought about the daughter I had not seen in 18 years, wondering if she would ever know how brave her mother had tried to be. I thought about Jasmine, standing somewhere in that crowd, ready to catch me if I fell apart in front of everyone. And I thought about Samith, who had looked at my biggest secret and called it the bravest thing he had ever heard. If he could see me that way, maybe I could learn to see myself that way too. I asked the person running the event for the microphone before the reporter's story could go live. I stood in front of 300 of the city's most powerful people, wearing a red dress I had never planned to give a speech in. I told them the truth, all of it, about Jasmine, about the setup on the rooftop, about Eleanor's threats, and yes, about the baby girl I had given up at 19 and carried in silence ever since. My voice shook through the first 2 sentences. Then, somehow it steadied, because for the first time in 8 years, I was telling my own story on my own terms. There is a special kind of freedom in that. No one can take it from you once you claim it for yourself. I am not ashamed that I survived, I told that room. I am not ashamed of a choice I made out of love when I had nothing else to give. And I will not let anyone, not a reporter, not a boardroom, not even the mother of the man I love, use my life as a weapon against me ever again. The room went silent for a long, scary moment. Then, from the back, I heard clapping. Slow at first, then louder, until half the room was standing. Samith crossed that ballroom faster than I had ever seen him move. He took the microphone gently out of my hand and told 300 shareholders that any company built on the kind of cruelty his mother had just tried to use as a weapon was not a company worth protecting. He said he planned to leave differently, starting that very night. Eleanor left the party alone, her whole plan falling apart, right in front of the board members she had hoped to impress. Within a month, a quiet vote moved her advisory role to nothing more than a symbolic title. Her power over the company's future was gone for good, not because of revenge, simply because everyone in that room had seen, with their own eyes, exactly who she really was. Jasmine stood beside me on that stage the entire time. She held my hand so tightly I could feel her heartbeat through her fingers. She refused to let go, even when I told her she did not have to stay. "We started this the day you introduced me to him," she whispered. "I am finishing it right beside you. I want to tell you what happened after, because the ending matters just as much as the beginning." 6 months later, Samith and I got married in a small backyard wedding at my mom's house. Not a rooftop, not a fancy ballroom, just the people who had actually earned the right to stand beside us. Jasmine was my maid of honor. My mom cried through the entire ceremony, and honestly, so did I. 3 months after that, with Samith's hand steady in mine, I hired someone to help me search for the daughter I had let go of 18 years before. This time, I was not doing it because of Eleanor's threats or anyone else's pressure. I was doing it out of my own courage, finally ready. The wedding itself was small and simple, exactly the way I wanted it. My mom made her famous cornbread for everyone, the same recipe she used to make when I was little and money was tight, and cornbread was all we had for dinner some nights. Samith wore a plain white shirt instead of one of his expensive suits, because he said he wanted to marry me as a regular man, not as a billionaire. Jasmine cried through her entire maid of honor speech, and she kept stopping to laugh at herself for crying so much, which of course made everyone else start crying too. Even Eleanor, invited quietly at Samith's request despite everything, stood near the back of the small crowd, and for the first time since I had met her, she did not look cold. She looked tired, and maybe a little bit sorry, though she never said the words out loud. Some people never learn how to say so sorry. I decided that was her problem to carry, not mine anymore. I will not share every single detail of what happened next, because some parts of my life are still mine to hold close. But I will tell you this much. The daughter I let go of when I was 19 grew up loved. She grew up safe. She is 19 years old herself now, and curious about the woman who once made the hardest choice of her life so her daughter could have a better one. We are slowly, carefully learning how to know each other. It is not like the reunions you see in movies. It is quieter than that. It is more real than that. I would not trade a single awkward, healing conversation for anything in the world. If there is one thing I learned from all of this, from the rooftop, from Eleanor's cruelty, from Jasmine's fierce and imperfect loyalty, from Samith's steady hands on the worst night of my life, it is this. The truth you are most afraid to say out loud is usually the exact thing that sets you free once you finally say it. Shame grows bigger in silence. It shrinks the moment you speak it out loud, surrounded by people who love you enough to stay. I spent 8 years building walls to protect a scared 19-year-old girl who thought she did not deserve love if anyone truly knew her whole story. It took losing my footing for one terrifying night on a rooftop to learn something important. The people worth keeping in your life are not the ones who never see you fall. They are the ones who show up at 6 in the morning, with a recording on their phone and tears on their face, refusing to let a lie stand between you and them. So if you are carrying a secret tonight that makes you feel unlovable, I hope you remember this story. I hope you remember a girl in a red dress, standing in front of 300 strangers, choosing truth over shame. You are not the worst thing that ever happened to you. You are the person who survived it, and you deserve every good thing that comes after that. My mom, when I finally told her the whole story weeks later over a cup of tea in her kitchen, just held my hand and said, "You did the bravest thing a scared 19-year-old could do, and now you did the bravest thing a grown woman could do. I have always been proud of you, Anna. I just wish you had let me help carry that weight sooner." I told her I wished the same thing. We cried together in that little kitchen, and it felt like closing a door that had been stuck open for 8 long years. Looking back now, I understand that love is not about finding someone who never makes mistakes. Jasmine made a mistake by not calling me the second Eleanor threatened her. I made a mistake by staying silent for 8 years out of fear. Even Samith made a mistake, standing frozen on that rooftop instead of chasing after me right away. Love is not the absence of mistakes. Love is what happens after the mistakes, when people choose to stay, to explain, to listen, and to try again. That is the kind of love I found with Samith, with Jasmine, and eventually with myself. If this story touched your heart, made you feel something real, that is exactly why I make these. If you want more stories like Anna and Samith's, please hit subscribe and turn on notifications, because another story is waiting for you very soon, and I promise you will not want to miss it.